went to school when I was 8 years old. I went to St. Joseph's Catholic School in Oneida. My mom kept me back until I was 8 years old. I should have started when I was 6 to wait for my brother Harold. You know, okay, so we were in the same grade. And so we used to be in the lower classroom from 1 to the 3rd grade. And then when we wanted to leave the room to go to the bathroom, we had outdoor toilets and we had to raise our hand. And then this nun would say, yes. And then Harold done this and he raised his hand. He said, may I leave the room? And she said no. Nun said no. So he had to go. A little while later he raised his hand again like that. And she said, yes, may I leave the room? No. So a kid knows when he's got to go, you know. So he's sitting by his desk. All of a sudden, we looked down where he was sitting, and a stream was going right down. He peed on the floor, and in his pants, and it went down right down under his desk. And then she let him go, but it was too late then. And then the time that same sister, Sister Consuela, she was a little thing, but she was mean. And they always used to like to put your hand on the desk and then hit it with a ruler. And then she used to pull ears, grab your ears like this. Playfully maybe, you know, but she was doing that to me quite a bit. And I used to get earaches. Okay, so my mom and dad were talking this one time, and she said, I heard my mom say, Nelson, you know something, I think that the nuns pulling Vernon's ears. And she said, well, why don't you ask him? And then she did ask me, and I said yes. She was pulling my ears. And my mom confronted her. She went up there and she stood toe to toe with her. They're about this is big. But my mom could have whipped her, you know. And she told her not to touch me anymore. And she didn't either. She worshipped me after that. Didn't want to get beat up. Another time when I was about 5 years old, we were living in the house where you live now, only it was over by the other place. And our dad took me along to a ball game up at Vance Valley. We didn't have a car, so we rode with somebody. I was about 5 years old. We were watching the ball game, and then pretty soon, after the game, our dads went over to the tavern and were drinking beer. And I got Alice Kenador's brother, Norns, Harold's wife's brother. They were about the same age. We went over by after the ball game, we went over by the tavern where the men were. And then somehow we snuck down the basement. We snuck down the basement and we went downstairs underneath the store. And there was a barrel down there, a big 50-gallon barrel with a spigot on it. And it was dripping. And there was cups there. So we went, Lawrence and I got a cup and we started drinking that stuff. Anyway, we both got snockered. All I remember is our dads down in the basement found us, you know, and they carried us upstairs. And they carried them my dad got a ride from Vance Valley to, that's right down the line here, back to our house. The car let us off up on 54, and Dad was walking with me. He had me over his shoulder, and took me to the house, and I was drunk because I was crawling on the floor, and I remember going under the table, and I think I was even going to pee in a coffee pot.
How old were you?
About 5. And then I could hear my mom and dad laughing, you know, because I was acting goofy. Let's see if I got another one. I ever tell you about the time when Grandpa Nelson used to make moonshine? He used to buy his mix from somebody, and then Harold and I used to clean his bottles, half pint and pint bottles. We didn't have running water then, but we used to haul water from the pump and used to heat it up in a wash tub, the soapy water, and sterilize the bottles, put them in there, and he used to get like little sand from the creek, you know, little pebbles was in there, and put it in there and shake it up to get all the dirt out of it, you know, and hot water, and then rinse them out. And then Dad used to fill them up, the bottles up, put a cork on them, put them in a carton or something for delivery, you know, put it in a car. And then they used to go to the taverns, and everybody knew who was selling moonshine. And they used to sell it out of the car.
Hey. No.
This is before the...
Okay.
There was no airport then, no... It wasn't built up, it was just farms and country roads back by the airport is now. And then a road along Dutchman's Creek. And then there was a road called, what was that? Sandhill, I think it was road. And it went back along the woods and then down towards Dutchman's Creek. And this one night we were back on those side roads, and it was raining, and the engine got wet, and it stopped. Our car stopped, or stalled. So we stayed overnight in the car anyway. Mom and Dad and I slept on a top window near the. We had a coupe car, Nash it was, and until the next morning when it dried up. Then we got started and took off back to Oneida. And lucky thing, because that night the federal agents were made a bust, and they caught a lot of guys, arrested them. And they didn't get us because we were out sleeping in a car out in the woods. Then this story I just told you. Remember what I told you now? Okay, well, after that, I was when I was overseas. my buddy was from New York, and he was a mail carrier between Fontainebleau Railway Station and Paris, and he used to get the mail and bring it back and forth, you know. And then this one time, he came back from there, and he came into the barracks, and he said, "Hey, Ninham, I heard your old man was a bootlegger." And I said, "Where did you hear that?" And then he started talking. He said, "There's a guy in the mailroom in Paris that knows you." I said, "What was his name?" He said, "Whitney Metoxen." And I knew him. And he said, he told him that story about what I just told you, about my dad being a bootlegger. There they used to tease me then. Another time I remember Grandpa Aaron Hall Sr. had a farm down North Oberlin Road near where Van Diots is now. He had a farm in the woods, and he cut some wood, pole wood. This is in the winter time. And he loaded it on a sled, a big sled. That sled was high. I bet almost as high as, well, at least 6 feet high anyway, on a sled, you know, pulled by horses. And then Grandpa Aaron House had me on the top, and blankets and sitting on top, and Dodo, my grandma, was there. And he gave me a dog, a little black dog, I remember. And I named him Mauser. Anyway, and we lived where Grandma's house is now. We had an old shack there, and Grandpa Aaron House brought that wood down there, unloaded it, and that was for the fire to make for heat, you know, for the stove. Okay, and then I had that dog, and that's one time in the summertime or spring, I was up playing on by the road, and a car came along and hit him and killed him, run over him. And I remember I was so heartbroken. I was crying, and the most I ever cried, you know, that my dog was killed, my Mauser. Another time, my dad and Ma used to go to houses, and Dad used to play a violin, and they used to dance, square dance in his houses, you know. And we had the same car that we used for bootlegging at Nash, with